Good evening, everyone. It is 7:30, and welcome so much to our Overture Forum tonight, the state of the arts in Wisconsin. Now, through the last year, we've all had to innovate a little bit in the performing arts centers, and we've also had to innovate tonight. We really wanted to have an opportunity to have some breakout rooms with you later on to address any questions you have for individual centers. But in order to do that, we had to do a traditional Zoom meeting. So I ask you to please kindly mute your microphones throughout any of the times that we're together in this big room so everyone can hear our panelists. Also, if you would like to leave your cameras on or off, you're welcome to do so, and you will have an opportunity to turn on your microphones, speak directly with our panelists tonight, as well as connect with patrons. It's been a year since our centers have closed due to COVID-19. And at the time, we didn't know the extent of the impact of this virus and what it would have on our industry. According to data compiled by Arts Wisconsin, the creative sector adds $10.1 billion into the Wisconsin economy. And it also employs nearly 100,000 people. That's a tremendous economic impact to our state, but there's also an emotional impact. The arts are critical in building a strong quality of life in our communities. Shared arts experiences connect us and help us make sense of the world around us. We laugh, we cry, we learn and escape through the arts, and we cannot wait to get right back at it. As I mentioned, we will have breakout sessions later on. And again, please mute as you join. And so why don't we just take a moment and get to know our panelists. Thank you so much to Maria Van Lanen, our president from Fox City Performing Arts Center, Kendra Whitlock Ingram, president and CEO of Marcus Performing Arts Center, and Tim Sauers, our vice president of programming, community engagement, marketing, and sales at Overture Center for the Performing Arts. So since not everyone might be familiar with each of your different centers, why don't we start off with just hearing a little bit about you and the center that you represent tonight. Maria, will you please start us off?
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Emily, and welcome everybody. I'm Maria Van Lanen. I'm the president at the Fox Cities Performing Arts Center, which is in the heart of Appleton, Wisconsin. I began at the Fox Cities Performing Arts Center actually as the physical structure of the building was being built. I started and came here to Appleton in the fall of 2001. We opened our doors to the public in the fall of 2002. The Performing Arts Center is comprised of a traditional proscenium style theater that seats roughly 2,100 people. And then we also have a black box flexible space that when it's configured to be in that traditional theater style, it can seat up to 350 people. It also can serve as a great reception area. We can do cabaret performances in there. We can provide classroom experiences, you name it. That's the great thing about that flexible space. Like the Overture and the Marcus Center, we are a local nonprofit arts and cultural education organization. Our focus and the way that we deliver our mission to the community is making sure that we are building a stronger, more inspired and compassionate community by connecting the best live performing arts experiences to important topics that we face as a community. And oftentimes that also includes giving voice to those who are underrepresented in our communities. Similar to the other venues, we present a Broadway series, an art and culture series, an education series. We're home to our local Fox Valley Symphony Orchestra. We also present national touring artists and serve as the venue of choice for many local arts experiences, community events, and business programs. So in all, in an average year pre-COVID, we would host anywhere from 400 to 450 events at the center. Now you can imagine when COVID struck. Like so many, we initially thought that this was going to be a brief intermission, right, in what was for us going to be a record-breaking season. Once it became apparent that we were going to be in this for the long haul, we regrouped as a staff and took a look at what we needed to do to keep our staff safe, to preserve the financial integrity of the organization, and to continue delivering our mission in service to our community. So unfortunately, our forced closure, as we all know, having live performances that gather big groups of people indoors is not something that we can do right now. So that forced closure meant that we did have to furlough the majority of our staff and then reimagine how we could transition our mission to a virtual platform. So that for us did not mean just streaming performances. It meant how could we still continue to pair the arts with an opportunity to engage the conversation in deep and meaningful, the community in deep and meaningful conversations. So we continue our education series virtually so that our educators can extend their classroom lessons, whether they're teaching 100% remotely, 100% in the classroom, or through a hybrid, they still have access to high quality programs. We were able to work with our educators to continue to deliver our Center Stage High School Musical Theater program, providing workshop opportunities for our high schoolers who are typically involved in their musical theater programs. And we also presented meaningful community programs like the John Lewis program. And we have a little fun too with our weekly The Show Must Go On show, which is an opportunity to provide a behind the scenes look at the business and the work that our community partners are doing. From a fundraising perspective, we did have to launch what we are calling our Act 2 fund. And this helps us raise money to deliver these programs virtually, even though we are essentially, we've lost all of our earned revenue opportunity by actually doing performances live. So the Act 2 fund helps us continue our work.
That's wonderful. I'm sure, I know from Overture's perspective, we can certainly relate. Kendra, can you share with us what's going on with Marcus Performing Arts Center?
Sure. Thank you, Emily. Thank you, colleagues. As you can see, we all coordinated our outfits as well as our background looks tonight. That's how tight we are after the last 10 months. Thank you again. I'm Kendra Whitlock Ingram. I'm the president and CEO of the Marcus Performing Arts Center here in downtown Milwaukee. Like Maria said, like my colleagues on the call, we are also, the Performing Arts Center in the city that houses a number of the major performing arts groups in Milwaukee, including the Florentine Opera, the Milwaukee Ballet, First Stage Theater Company, among others. And we are also a presenter of touring Broadway, nationally and internationally, touring cultural artists and commercial entertainment as well. So a lot of the same things. Maria, you pretty much have said all of the things that the Marcus Center does as well. Very similar, to Maria. I would say a little bit about kind of where we are at this point. I started in this role. I came from the orchestra business originally. My first 13 years in the business was managing professional orchestras in Baltimore and Detroit, among others. And then I got into the presenting business about 11 years ago, working for performing arts centers. So I'm relatively new to the Marcus Center. It's weird to say that now because I've been here almost a year. I started my first day on the job, which all of our Milwaukee crew on the call today knows is, it was March 9. And we ended up closing the venue on March 16. So I have only known Milwaukee in the pandemic and Wisconsin, even though I had been here a couple times before for throughout the years for other things. And I love the state and of course our city. We, like Marie and Tim, the first 6 weeks or so of the pandemic was total crisis mode, figuring out what we were going to do with staff, at that time back in April, we actually still were thinking we might reopen by the fall.
That's right.
So we were like, maybe we're just moving shows around, and it became pretty quick, became pretty apparent after about the first 6 weeks, once we kind of stabilized, got a PPP loan, figured out staffing situation, that this was going to last a lot longer. So for the Marcus Center, we were already in the midst of launching a campus master plan where we were going to be doing a number of renovations throughout the facility. And we really had to think about that. And knowing that the venue could be offline for many months, how we were going to change the order of what the projects would be, knowing that we had an opportunity to potentially utilize this dark time to do some projects that would take the venue offline for a period of time, as well as really think about post-pandemic, what can we bring our audiences back to that's going to make them feel confident and comfortable coming back to large assembly in our venue. So we quickly shifted our project plan. And as you can see behind me, this is a rendering of what audiences can expect to return to. And if I can shift over to the side, you can see center aisles that we did not have in the Marcus Center before the pandemic. So really some real improvements to our major concert hall that is part of that renovation, as well as some upgrades to our outside space so that we can actually utilize outdoor performances as a way to, first of all, to enjoy Wisconsin summers, and second of all, to also ease people back into live performance. So a little bit more about, whoop, somebody needs to mute. So a little bit more about the center. So we have several venues under the roof of the Marcus Center. We have a 2,100 seat concert hall, multi-purpose space where we present Broadway and a number of our large resident partners. We have a 500 seat jewel box concert hall, a just under 500 seat black box theater, a pavilion that hosts a number of seated dinners, galas, weddings. And then we also have a outdoor pavilion that has fixed seating for about 400. And now with the renovations we've done to outside, also has the potential to expand our outdoor seating to include lawn seating. So that's going to be a really exciting new element of what we're doing. One other thing to keep an eye out for us is, like our colleagues to the north and to the west, we have presented the cultural arts, so jazz, contemporary dance, global music, as well as commercial programming. But we're really looking at the reopening of our venue as a way to also reimagine what our contribution to the cultural landscape is in our community. So focusing on cultural programming like those types of performances is something that you will see more of at the Marcus Center when we do come back to live performance. So thank you again, everybody, for gathering us together.
I'm really excited for your aisle project. And what a great way to take advantage of this time offline, where to be able to, if you had to reopen and then close again, to be able to take care of that project. I mean, in some ways, we all know that this has been a bit of a blessing, as much as it some days feels very much as a curse. And Tim, would you like to talk a little bit about what's going on at Overture?
Sure. Hi, everybody. My name is Tim Sauers, as Emily said. I'm Vice President of Programming and Community Engagement normally, but I also have, during the pandemic, have taken over the role of marketing and sales, and also serve with my executive team colleagues as the leader of Overture right now, because we are operating without a CEO. There was a search process during this time that we stopped because it just wasn't felt right to do that during this time period. And so right now we're working under a shared leadership model with the executive team. So that's why I'm here, along with these lovely presidents from all over the state. And well, Overture Center is located in downtown Madison. We're a multi-venue performing arts center who, prior to the pandemic, served over 700,000 art experiences a year. Like, that's an incredible number and just like Maria and Kendra, we have a multitude of programming. Pre-pandemic, we had 20 plus programs, including our presenting programs that many of you know of, Overture Presents and Broadway at Overture. We also house 10 resident companies, and we also have 4 visual art galleries in the building. And so we serve as this really cultural hub in downtown. And right now with us closed and downtown just coming back, our downtown is in a hurting place right now. And, Overture serves as a major economic driver to that downtown and its important role within the community. And, during this time, just like my colleagues, we've been doing virtual programming. We have, one of our big draw free programs, International Festival that we hold every February, is coming up at the end of the month in a virtual edition, which is going to be this cool interactive experience with you. And it's amazing to me that people have really kind of embraced this and are really interested in it. And it is a way, we all were like, oh, we got to stay connected, got to stay connected, got to stay connected to our communities. But it's about what our communities love that we want to provide them and give them warmth and hope and love during this time period. So I think that's why a lot of us are doing this program. We're working on a multi-year right now strategic plan to move forward within the building, and that's taking our time because what we have to do, like looking forward with this closure for this long period, we have to lay our foundation again. So that's a big area of focus and interest to us, is laying our foundation. And this is the time for us to look at what has worked for us and what has not worked, and to build a better culture. So that's really has been one of our focuses during this time period, as well as rearranging a million shows every couple of weeks, right? So that's a little bit about Overture Center and where we are.
Well, and that's a perfect segue, Tim, because part of the reason we wanted to come together is because we actually have had some wonderful news to be able to share with you that is a little bit more forward looking. All 3 of you have announced your Broadway seasons recently. So what can we look forward to around the state when it comes to Broadway seasons? Maria, would you start us off again, please?
Sure, I'd be glad to. Well, it is exciting to be able to talk about, the light at the end of this very, very long tunnel, and start being able to look forward to when we can all come back together again to enjoy these live experiences. I know I, for one, just miss those opportunities for those brush by conversations that you have during intermission and before the show. So at the Performing Arts Center, what we announced at the end of January is that we will be restarting our Broadway series in late October, early November, with the return of Wicked. And we can't think of a better way to welcome audiences back. It is a true favorite. And I think each of us took a lot of care in thinking about what is that first show that you welcome people back with. So we're excited that ours will be Wicked. And then we, as part of our Broadway series, we are very fortunate to be able to include the brand new 2019 Tony Award-winning Best Musical, Hadestown. We also were able to keep Mean Girls, which is something that we know everybody was very excited about seeing pre-COVID, as well as Disney's Frozen. And we do have Hairspray coming as well, and the very long awaited for, much anticipated Dear Evan Hansen will finally make its way to the Fox Cities, which I know our community is also really looking forward to. And then we'll be announcing the rest of our programs, the rest of our Arts and Culture series, the Fox Valley Symphony series, and our other national touring artists in April.
Excellent. What's coming to Marcus, Kendra?
Well, first, that's an awesome season. So,
well, Wicked closed us down, so it's opening you up. So I hope that's something good.
They should have just kept it there. It would have been a much shorter commute, right, Tim?
Exactly.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, I can't wait. So for the group, just so you know, like Tim and I have met and have known each other for many, many years, because I served in a very similar role to Tim.
Right.
Omaha. So we have been pals for a very long time. Maria and I have actually not met in person. We have only been doing this for months. So we've all talked about when we're coming back, we're all going to each other's markets and having a very nice meal with a very large number of bottles of wine.
Very good wine, yes.
So I'm definitely excited to come up to your place for a couple of the shows that you mentioned. As you can imagine, everyone, we have some overlaps because of routing and whatnot. So we were lucky. This is totally not, I can't say this was due to any brilliant programming on our point, but just really the time of where it fell. We get to open with Hamilton in October for 2 weeks. And then have a season of Jesus Christ Superstar in November. Also, we are bringing Mean Girls to town in January, the national tour of Pretty Woman in March. Very excited. I'm excited for all these shows, but I'm really excited for Ain't Too Proud, the Temptations musical, which is going to be here in April. Everyone Loves Cats, and it'll be back in May, as well as Charlie and the Chocolate Factory in June. So as you can see, there's some of our markets share a couple shows, and some are different depending on how the tours fall and what we've had, and et cetera. So lots of good things to see in all the cities. Now, Tim.
What? When Kendra started, I'm just going to say this right now. When Kendra started, we already had a date. She was coming over to Madison,
Right.
April, and this and that.
What was I coming to see? I was coming to see a show that I was excited about. What was it?
I don't know.
It was a dance show.
No, it wasn't. I think it was a Cirque show or
Oh, right. It was a Cirque show. You're right.
something like that. Oh, yeah, whatever. But, when she started right before it happened, I was like, oh, you have your job cut out for you. And I have to just give you credit. I cannot believe what you've been doing without seeing people, right? Without the amount of money you have raised and what you're doing with your building and taking the opportunity. Marcus is lucky to have you.
I really appreciate that, Tim. And I give a lot of credit to, having a really good team in place.
Yeah.
And absolutely, every day I count my lucky stars at how lucky we are with the board we have. So that makes it a lot easier. But it's going to be one of those things you talk about 20 years from now. Like, remember when you started the job in the middle of a pandemic?
Right.
Performing Arts Center. Anyway, tell us what you're doing.
Well, our Broadway season, we have 2 seasons in one. Our new 21-22 season kicks off with Fiddler in November. We have Mean Girls 2 in January, Hairspray in February, The Prom in March, Dear Evan Hansen in May, Ain't Too Proud in June, and then Hamilton in August. But we also have a 1920 show from 2 seasons ago that's going to play in August, Come From Way. So we're not sure what's actually going to be opening our building because we have one-night engagements that are planned too, and the symphony has a week held, to start their season in September. But none of us are going to open until we get to herd immunity in our communities. And that's one of the things that we have been focusing on through our time together. When we started meeting back in April, we came together as colleagues. We came together to support for each other. We came together to learn from each other. And we came together to panic for a little bit, right? Until we decided, and then it just took off for us what we needed to do along the steps. And now we're sitting at this place where for large crowds to gather, we have to be assured that people are vaccinated, that the spread of COVID cannot happen, right? And we have to remember in all of our communities that our industry is still closed. We are one of the last to come back at this time, and we can't come back until all the protocols are into place. Because one of the things the 3 of us share is we're not opening until we can be assured the health and safety of our staff, of our patrons, and of our community. That is so important to us.
I know we were going to wait.
Please mute.
Please
Thank
mute. I know we were going to wait until the end to take a few audience questions, but we have a good question in the chat that's related to what you were just talking about, Tim. I know that the three of you have been meeting weekly to talk really about reopening and have also talked a lot about health and safety protocols. Who are you calling on to help guide your plans towards reopening?
That's a great question to guide us.
Who wants it? Yeah, I can jump in real quick. We started, as I know Tim and Maria did as well, back in June, talking with our local health experts. So in Milwaukee, we have a phenomenal epidemiologist out of Medical College of Wisconsin, Dr. Laura Cassidy, who's actually now served as a consultant across the state, sounds like. She's like our own Dr. Fauci. So she's been a really great help to not only us, but the arts community here to talk through our safety plans. She's been consulting with the city health department, with the restaurant industry. So that's been a huge help. And then we all have access through our affiliations with Broadway League and Broadway Across America to some really amazing health experts who are not only looking at our venues, but are looking at all venues like ours across the country. So I feel really lucky that we have, because of our affiliation, frankly, with Broadway Across America and the Broadway League, we have access to some really great resources.
Yeah. And to add on to that, like Kendra said, we actually have access to building health experts, which before COVID, who even knew that was a thing? And these are people who specialize in how you make sure that you're doing everything that you can to prevent the spread of illnesses, sickness in your building. So they've been able to provide some incredible insights when it comes to airflow, sanitation, all of those different realms. And then, as I'm sure anybody who's out there can recognize, there are many, many task force breakout groups who are very focused on all the various elements that it will take to restart our industry. It's a very dynamic industry with a lot of moving parts when you're talking about touring artists, both within the United States and, as Kendra said, internationally for some of our tours. And so we have to create a common language and a shared understanding of the health and safety protocols that we can all agree on a certain standard, so that as these artists are touring back and forth across the country, their safety, their health is being kept in mind, but we're also protecting our teams who are going to be exposed to all of these individuals who are traveling. So it's really important to make sure that we're cross-referencing with each other so that we have a shared understanding of what that path forward looks like.
One of the things that I was going to add to this about the health and safety when we started talking about this was one of our early projects to come up with a guideline that not only that we could use, but we could also share with other venues in the state. Because if we don't have the kind of consistency in the way that we are welcoming people back and what is the requirement, the touring shows aren't going to come around and be able to tour across our state. So that's an important piece to that. And so as we were working with national organizations such as the Broadway League and really looking at what are the health and safety protocols that we have to have. But now you have to realize that every 3 or 4 weeks they change, right, as this virus goes. So we have our plans, we all have our plans in place on what we're going to do or what we need to do, and the timing of what really needs to happen by the time we go to open our doors. We're looking, Broadway is first out of the gate, and we're looking at that in the fall. It's all about a big fall opening for all those kind of shows. So it was important for us to share all of this and to be able to present back as a unified force back to our national partners to say, this is where we are in Wisconsin. Because Wisconsin is its own state. All of our communities have their own mandates. We're all facing different issues, but what are the similarities that we can put together to do? So we spent a lot of time working on that.
Yeah.
And Tim, I would like to also clarify, when you say we're, the first show out of the gate will be Broadway, for some of us, we are going to experiment with smaller capacity shows. I think it's really important to Tim's point, in order to have Broadway back,
that's what I'm basically saying.
Yeah, so in order to have Broadway back, we really need to have full capacities available for those shows to return. We are obviously looking at, smaller capacity shows probably in the nearer future that would be aligned with our various health capacity restrictions. Like in Milwaukee right now, it's 25% of your total capacity or 250, whichever's less, although you can come to the city health department with a proposal for more than that. So we definitely plan to have those types of events too, and a number of health and safety protocols that'll be in place in order to do those, which includes, to Scott's question in the chat, distancing for those. Broadway, no distancing for Broadway, because we need the full capacity.
Yeah. And I think that's the important thing, right? There needs to be a timeline perspective added to all of these conversations. What are we doing right now to prevent the spread? Well, we're 100% shut down. I don't know what else we can do, right? So we're all, Tim said this earlier, we're all laser focused on the fact that we will not reopen until we are confident that we can do so in a way where our staff, our volunteers, the artists, the audience members, where we can protect them, where we have the right protocols in place. So the reason why we're having these conversations, well, we've been having these conversations since the summer, but we're continuing these conversations right now is because you need to keep an eye on how the mitigation efforts that are the best known scientific processes right now, how would those apply to our venues, recognizing that this virus is still changing. We can't open until the spread has decreased, right? And we also need to make sure that we've got the right safety protocols in place and that they make sense for our venue. Again, like Kendra said, we can't do touring Broadway if social distancing is still a requirement to keep people safe, not because we don't care about people's safety, but because actually we care so much about people's safety that we recognize we can't do Broadway until we can do it safely, meaning herd immunity and the spread has decreased and we can have people sitting together under one roof. So,
and it's not financially feasible to do it.
That's right.
That's right.
It's just not financially feasible.
Yep. So all of the things that are being talked about right now at the CDC level, again, air filtration and circulation is, I think, the number one thing that they're talking about from a venue perspective. So every single one of us are having our buildings inspected and making sure that we meet or exceed those standards. Masking, we believe, will be in the near-term future when we are getting ready to open. And I think that we'll also be looking at between what is the combination between testing and vaccination. We don't know what that will look like when we get to reopening in the fall, but it's something we're keeping a very close eye on because we believe that some combination of that is going to play a key in how we safely bring people back into our buildings.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so, really asking right now, this is what we're envisioning. And we are following the CDC and my idol, Dr. Fauci, and what he says and what he has been right all along through this process. And knowing that, fall is going to be that time period where it looks likely that large crowds will be able to gather. Yes, he said you may be wearing masks for a while. And yes, you have to have the sanitation in place for it, but at least people will be able to gather, right? And another area that we've been working on, in addition to this, was really educating our officials and educating our state about our industry. During the process of, when the CARES Act money has filtered down to the state level, there wasn't they decided they were going to give some money to arts and culture. They weren't exactly sure what that looked like. And, us and others like NEVA, the NEVA organization, did some work around that to advocate what our industry is about.
Well, sorry, go ahead, Emily.
I was just going to ask if you both could just elaborate a little bit more about some of those conversations that you had. I know that advocacy for all of us has become a lot more, I wouldn't say important, but just a bigger focus of our work over the last 10 months. And so how have you worked together, and how did you approach that?
You want me to start?
Go ahead.
I think, again, like Tim said, it started when the CARES Act funding got passed last summer. We were making sure that we were in conversations at the federal and the state level once it was determined that that money would flow into the state for distribution, to make sure that we were talking about the impact that the COVID pandemic is having on our industry. You heard Tim say it before, we were one of the first businesses that had to completely 100% shut down, and we will be one of the last that will be able to reopen. And our businesses serve as an economic generator oftentimes for our communities. So it's much more than just our organizations. So making sure that people understood that, and that helped influence when the CARES money flowed into the state and the state was distributing that money via grants, we were able to have some conversations and help inform that granting process and how the grants were distributed among the different industries. I think we continue in this effort of education as we look at different ways, again, to control the spread of the virus, to protect people from the spread of the virus, making sure that legislation is in alignment with what the CDC is recommending so that we can do everything in our power to get control of this spread, so that we can get back to business and bring our economies back.
Yeah, and I think the three of us, our venues are very, very similar. As you can hear now, there's so many things that we that apply to all of us, challenges and opportunities. And before COVID, I don't think, well, we participate in our various service organizations and we have our different consortia and whatnot, but this has really brought us together to really start to think about, wow, we actually have a pretty big impact in this state. I mean, our colleague at Arts Wisconsin, Ann Katz, told us the other day that the creative industry in Wisconsin is a 10.1 billion with the B, as Tim says, billion with the B industry. I mean, that is a huge economic driver. And when we think about, you've heard some of the numbers that our venues have talked about of the economic impact of just our venues, we really started to think, wow, we should really start talking to each other more. And this is something that I see continuing past the pandemic. We have literally met every 2 weeks for the last 10 months, like almost without fail, maybe a holiday in there, and even with that, I think we've met every 2 weeks, and we are often pushing right up against our hour together, because there's so many things that like, well, what are you doing with this? How are you working with this? Maybe we should start bringing more people into this conversation. So I really see us hoping to expand our circle, frankly, because we have a lot of leverage as an industry, and by coming together, I think that's really shown us that we can really have an impact.
Yeah. And I just want to add to that real quickly that we also recognize that by comparing and sharing our information that we're getting at the national level, we also then report back to our local community arts groups who maybe don't have as many national resources to tap into. So what we're hoping is that by connecting with the Wisconsin Presenters Network and our local arts community, we can distill that information so that, again, as an entire arts and culture industry, we're using the same language, having the same conversations, and pushing toward the same end goal. So we see that there's an opportunity there for us to help with that coordination of those efforts throughout the state.
And Sarah, yes, your point is well taken. Although, this is one of the reasons why we have to keep telling this story, because yes, we do rank fairly low as far as arts funding, but I think our voice can be very loud if we come together.
We have a few questions. I think
There's a
we'll
lot of questions.
we've got a lot of questions, but we'll take one more, and then we'll break out into breakout groups, and then we'll come back and we'll attack a few more before the evening's over. Thank you so much to everyone for these wonderful questions and for your engagement tonight. So there's some questions about, how does what's happening in touring Broadway connect with what's happening in New York? And then how is all of this impacting the artists too? Are they being forced to find day jobs? Are they still able to do some sort of rehearsing? What does that schedule look like?
Well, as you can imagine, everybody's out of work. The artists, it affects all the backstage. It affects all the designers from the show. All the trucking industry that buses everybody around. Like, it is a huge hit for that. So I'll just say that part.
As far as the ties, I get this question a lot about, does the touring industry reopening connect to New York Broadway reopening? And actually, they are able to happen independently. And in an ideal world, there is a little bit of a stagger that happens between the two, because if you think about, we've been now shut down for so long that all of these shows are going to have to recall their cast, possibly replace some casts if people have aged out of roles or something like that. They've got to re-rehearse and get everything ready to go. Oftentimes the tour and the Broadway show, if the show exists in both places, they share those creative teams, right? And creative teams oftentimes overlap between shows. You've got a lighting designer who may be working on 3 or 4 shows at one time. So it's difficult to restart it all exactly at the same time. And so there will be some stagger, and we're not sure yet exactly when Broadway in New York will be able to reopen, but we are able to have the conversation about when touring Broadway on the road can reopen independently of that.
Great. Well, we have come to, I think, a nice breaking point to be able to go into our breakout sessions. And so in just a minute, at the bottom of your screen where you see the chat share screen, you should see breakout rooms. It looks like 4 squares. If you click on that, it says join a breakout room. And then to the right, to the left is the center, and to the right is how you join. So Overture is on the top, Marcus in the middle, and Fox Cities is on the bottom. Click the join and you will be magically transported to your center.
Emily, how long will we be here?
We will be for 10 minutes. So we have just 10 minutes, and it will automatically bring you all back.
All right.
It will? Great.
It will.
Bye.
Enjoy. We look forward to seeing you.
We are looking at plans, by the way, for the outdoor space to be no distancing, and everything from that, like best case scenario, to 25% distancing on the lawn spaces, 50% distancing. So, but we are going to have that outdoor space active this summer. So thanks to the folks who asked that question.
Yeah.
Well,
That was great. We could have gone on long. Can I say something quick before you go on to what you want to do? We have Monica, who is part of a member of Senator Baldwin's team, and Senator Baldwin, of course, was a great supporter for Save Our Stages legislation. And we just want to all thank her and her administration for that, because that was a big push to get that passed for us. We would not have been able to survive this without that legislation. And thank you, everybody from across the state. We all did our advocacy on that. That was a big piece that we were working on also as our 3 venues together, to make sure that people were out there writing their legislators to make sure we got this legislation passed. So thank you, Tammy Baldwin and everybody. And I have to say to you, Monica, when I wrote to all the senators and I did all my thing, and I got the nicest reply back that was not a form letter, and how much that touched me, that you were listening to us, and thank you again for supporting our industry.
Yes, mad props from Milwaukee as well. Monica, we have Vanessa in our market who represents Senator Baldwin's office. So love to her. And we, again, are so, like, as Tim said, I don't think, maybe people don't understand how incredibly, like, critical the Save Our Stages funding is for us. Like, it is critical to us to reopen. It would be very hard for us to do it without it. So we're, again, very grateful.
So on that note, and we talked a little bit about, the state art funding that came, arts funding that came in November, December, and now this federal funding that's coming through the shuttered venue operators. I mean, really, what does that mean for us? What is, what are the revenue deficits that we were looking at that we need to replace in some way? And then, the changes that we need to make to venues, again, to support that healthy building concept as we reopen.
Well, I can tell you, I'll start, for us, the fact that we are 100% again closed and unable to generate that earned revenue, we are absolutely reliant on the support of our community and grant funds like this. So from an earned revenue perspective, we are more than 96% below our earned revenue typically. So that's 96% of our income, earned income, that we are unable to generate. Thanks to our annual partners, the overall loss is 73%. So it's a little bit better, but those are staggering numbers when you think about the fact that we have lost 73% of our budget. And so it's absolutely vital that this funding comes through to help us as we try to survive through the pandemic and then come out the other side. And Emily, that's not even counting the additional capital and PPE investments that will be required by all of our venues in order to safely reopen. So that's additional to making up for the losses that we're all experiencing.
There was a, sorry, go ahead, Kendra.
I was just to say, very similar in Milwaukee, we are just over 90% loss in earned revenue. And like Maria, because of contributions and some support that we get, because we're a county facility, we're at about 75% total loss. And like Maria, we also had to lay off the majority of our staff starting in July. So it's been incredibly difficult, and coming back to fully operating is going to be a challenge without that relief support.
And we, of course, are the exact same, almost the exact same numbers. Again, that's just, again, looking at the similarities between us. We're down 98% in our earned revenue. And thank you, everybody, for Overture's contributions. And it puts us at a 70% total loss during this time period.
We've all acknowledged the role that donors have played in our survival right now. And from the bottom of our heart, thank you for believing in the arts, believing in these centers, and believing in our future. How have you adapted fundraising during this time?
Well, we had a special campaign. We had a special campaign, and I'll let Emily talk about it. She ran it.
Similar to Maria, as you talked about in the opening, with your Act 2, we had an intermission campaign, and for us, our goal was really ambitious. It was 1.5 million, which quite frankly has never been something we've achieved fundraising wise, especially in the kind of that time frame. Most of you were so really generous in including a donation with your season ticket orders, and that's usually where we see the most of our funds. And this was a completely different time frame, and also ours. It is hard because we like to see you and talk to you and find out what you want to do and where there's that really good match. And in this format, we just didn't have that opportunity to do it the same way that we would normally like to have those sit down conversations with you. But so many came to us and said, how can we help? And ticket donations were huge for us. Thank you for deciding to forego a refund or a credit and donate back. those tickets. I mean, for us, I think that's up to now almost $400,000 that's been donated just through that. Again, the grants have been huge. And we also had an anonymous donor that came forward and said, I'll match, I want to see you be successful in this. I believe in the future of Overture, I'll match everything in December. And that resulted in $379,000 of individual gifts in that 1 month. You are incredible.
In the case of Milwaukee, we, like our colleagues, also launched a special fundraising campaign that was actually a combination of capital and operating. We call our campaign Raise the Curtain. And the goal of the Raise the Curtain campaign was, to help us with, financial sustainability through the pandemic, but also to contribute to some of the additional renovation projects that we wanted to complete, within the next few years. So one of the big pieces of that, which we've all had a lot of excitement around, is being able to name a seat for a contribution in our newly renovated Lanen Hall. So there's still opportunity to do that, Milwaukee folks. And of course, anyone from Wisconsin can name a seat. It's a great way to recognize a friend or family member, or just, own a piece of the performing arts and the Marcus Center that you may really love. So for us, that's been really helpful. And we don't have, the philanthropic culture that our colleagues have. We've been much more reliant overall on earned revenue. So that's also a big change coming out of COVID, as we're looking to also start presenting more cultural programs, building a philanthropic culture at the Marcus Center to support those mission-based programs is going to be really important. So again, very grateful to the special donors that came on board to help us with the renovation, Donna and Della Baumgartner, as well as an anonymous donor, and extremely grateful to all the individuals who've committed to Raise the Curtain. So yeah, long way to go, but we're grateful for what we've received.
There's a question about volunteer bases. Seeing that the theater volunteer bases primarily consists of retirees, do you have plans or concerns about rebuilding a pool? Should we see a reduction due to COVID concerns?
I know we're very focused on that. We have a great team leader of our volunteer area, and she's been working very hard along with the rest of the team to keep our volunteers engaged virtually during this time. We also are doing now regular pulse surveys just to check in with our volunteers, see how they're feeling, so that hopefully we can get kind of an early read on how many are planning to return and how many are not. I think that there is definitely a reality of there may be some risks involved with that. Again, I think the future will inform that much better. As we learn more about how well the vaccine is protecting people, maybe that will help to allay some of the fears that people may have. But I think definitely it is very top of mind for our organization, and something that we know we need to have plans in place to try to recruit if we do lose some volunteers, at least in the early outset, right? There may be some volunteers who say, I'm just not comfortable yet. I'll come back in a few more months. And so we just need to find how we bridge those gaps.
Yeah, absolutely. Same.
I would say though, we want all of our volunteers to come back.
Absolutely.
But we are also looking at, is this an opportunity? Again, always trying to find that silver lining in all of this madness. Is there an opportunity for us to also bring in additional volunteers to expand our volunteer pool as we look at diversifying our front house teams, ensuring that our staff and volunteers represent the racial and ethnic diversity of our city of Milwaukee. So that is something that we've been actually talking a lot about, specifically with the volunteer pool. Like I said, any volunteers that are on the call today, we want you all to come back. So we don't want to replace any of you, but we do want to expand the family of volunteers to, and we're hoping that this will be a good time for us to really start recruiting in that area as well.
Same here. We have an initiative in place for just for that to expand our volunteer base.
It looks like we have about time for one more question. And from Rick, yes, I recognize that your PACs are presenting organizations, but many repertory arts companies are using technology to stream performances to virtual audiences. Do you see this happening during or after COVID with your organizations?
Great question. That's a great question. This is a question we get. I'm sure I speak for Tim and Maria. I get this question
Go
all
ahead.
the time. And I think I have two thoughts on this. One, the pandemic has shown us that there is definitely a place for virtual programming. What it has also shown us is that there is not a place to monetize virtual programming, at least not in the traditional ways. Like I think we've all experimented with streaming programs over the last 12 months of these, high profile artist concerts, live from my living room concerts, and our own education and community engagement programs. And for us, the lesson learned that we're going to absolutely take away is that we have been able to reach more people than we ever thought possible through streaming. We have a kids program that we would do in the summer that would typically reach a couple thousand kids over the course of the summer. We had 46,000 views of those programs since we started streaming them. It's so popular now that we're starting to get questions like, when are you going to do the next thing? I'm waiting for the next thing that's going to come out. So I do see virtual programming, at least for us, continuing past the pandemic. I don't see it as necessarily something that is going to be a revenue generator.
Or a replacement.
100%.
Right. Like a lot of it is an enhancement.
Yes.
To what we're doing. It's like, you think about, we have a Kids in the Rotunda program every Saturday that's free. It fills up all the time. There's no reason why you can't put a camera on that and and stream that out to a virtual audience who aren't able to come to the building to see it. So yep. I think about that.
You're exactly right. And, Tim, building on that specifically, prior to the pandemic, we have been in conversations about how do we accommodate the needs, especially for those students who can't necessarily leave the classroom to come into the theater environment, right? Whatever their situation is. So I do think that there's an opportunity to continue to reach those students through streaming options. And I agree with what you're both saying, that it's about how do you enhance the reach and the depth of the conversation you're able to engage in surrounding what's probably happening live, right? So I think that it's looking at how does it serve as an enhancement to the mission through residencies and expanding that reach.
Yeah, I mean, we're doing some virtual field trips right now with the school district, and it's amazing to me the kids are dancing and doing all this stuff on the other end. I was watching one the other day and I was like, power to you all. Like, this is really, it was great. It was very inspiring to me to, keep moving in that direction, because I'm burned out half the day on these Zoom calls, right? I was inspired, totally inspired.
Well, what words would you like to leave with our audience tonight? I mean, thank you so much for answering all of these wonderful questions, and for all of you out there for submitting these questions. It's a little different format where than we're used to, and we really appreciate. It's been fun to see your faces and to see you nodding along, and so thank you just for that. Maria, Tim, and Kendra, what wisdom do you leave us with as we look forward into 2021?
Well, I guess I have two pieces. One, I think we are all very, very excited for when we can be back together live, sharing those experiences, because there is truly no way to replicate that experience of being in a room, sharing a live experiences. However, what I will say is between now and then, there are still so many ways for you to engage, and it is vital that you do so. So with our performing arts centers, we've had the luxury tonight of really focusing on our organizations, but there are so many arts organizations in our community that are also working very, very hard. So when you can, attend those virtual performances, and don't just attend as a fly on the wall, let them know you're there. Send them little notes along the way in the comment field, because artists thrive. The reason why artists, especially theater artists, do what they do is that connection with the audience, and we're all missing that right now. So they're living off of what happens in their comment scroll and the little emojis that you're feeding them along the way. So don't be shy. Give them that feedback. They need it, and just be in the ring. Make sure that you're engaging with your elected representatives to ensure that they are enforcing the CDC recommendations so that we can all get back to what we love sooner in a healthy, safe way. So be engaged. That's my parting thoughts.
Who wants to go next, Tim or Kendra?
Tim, I'm going to give you the last word, so I'll go.
Yeah, you won't be able to top mine.
That is challenge.
I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
That is true. I 1000% agree with Maria, and I would also say stay positive, and we're going to get back there, but we do need you all to be doing your part, and also you need to be following the CDC guidelines, because there's a direct correlation between you doing that and us getting back to live performance. But stay hopeful. It's coming. The light at the end of the tunnel, we can see it, and every single day it's getting closer and closer. And I feel so optimistic about 2021 every single day. So you should too.
Yeah, I agree, of course, with my colleagues, but I just want to leave you with you inspire me to do the job that I'm doing, because, just to use a little statistic, when we put our Broadway season on sale back in April of what year that was, 20, when we put our Broadway season on sale, we had 6,600 subscribers who subscribed during the pandemic. And I was like, what?
Mm-hmm.
And then 10 months later, we have 6,500 of those 6,600. And I thought, that's saying something to me. And it's saying something to me, A, how much you love Broadway and how much you love performing arts, but how much you trust us. And some of you, we've been holding on to your money for 2 years for some of these shows. And you're like, oh, well, that's fine until the show comes, right? Whatever. But I take that to heart as a leader and as a worker and as a community member. And so just thank you for your continued support. Thank you for your love of this art form, right? And it is going to be an emotional time when we all come back together. And then the other words of advice that I'm doing for myself is I'm more relaxed now than I ever been in years. Like, it's really weird to me because it's a very stressful time period. And all of a sudden I'm enjoying my time I have. So if you have that kind of time too, enjoy it, because there's a light now at the end of the tunnel. So it's like, enjoy it and don't stress it.
Yeah, enjoy it, because we're about to fill all your nights again really soon.
Right. And because many of you haven't spent any money with us for the last whatever, you're going to have to do double the next year out, right?
Well, and you're going to want to, because you're going to remember the dark times, and you're going to say, right, you know what? I am never going to take this for granted again. We three, and I know we all have experienced this, never in my life have I gone this long without being in a performance. In my life, not even just as a professional.
No, I agree.
And we will never take this for granted again.
Never. I mean, we all see hundreds of shows a year.
Yes.
All kinds of shows, all genres, all levels, from high school theater, musicals to Broadway, right? We see it all. And, I realized that when we went into a pandemic, That was really the only thing I did in my life, was go to shows and eat out. I mean, that's all I did in my free, and go to the movies, right? So anyhow, sorry, but just thank you, everybody. And just coming tonight to listen and to share in the conversation is meaningful to us as well.
Yes.
Yes.
Definitely. Thank you so much, Maria, Tim, and Kendra, and even the background, our technical director tonight, helping us to organize this. Thank you out in the audience. We truly, truly miss you, but we will be back at some point in 2021, and our doors will be ready to welcome you. And we probably can't hug you at that point, but know that we really, really, really want to, and you can have a virtual hug right now. So, until our curtains go up, please be safe, be well, and good night.
Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Bye.